fat and I refuse to have bariatric surgery. So,
I'm fat and I avoid doctors. So,
I'm fat and I'm strong. So,
I'm fat and I enjoy high intensity workouts the most. So,
I'm fat and I am healthy. So,
I'm fat and my health is very important to me. So,
I'm Ameya
and I'm Pallavi, and we're the co hosts of the Fatsopodcast, where we talk about the joys and sorrows of being fat women in India. Heavy on the joy.
Today, we're going to talk about fatness and health. Before we begin, a note. All the studies and books that we refer to will be placed in links in the description. So do take the time to check them out yourself. Always remember to do your own research. No matter what we say as fatsos or do as fatsos to combat fat phobia and fat stigma, the conversation always circles back to being fat is unhealthy. But you know what? It doesn't have to be. For far too long, the medical community and the world and society have all just quietly equated body weight with body health. When in fact, there really isn't any necessary causal relationship there. Right? And we use the most outrageously pointless ways to measure this. Take BMI. BMI or body mass index is effectively the bane of every fat person's life. It's a statistical index that was invented by a statistician who had nothing to do with health or biological research called Adolphe Quetelet. I hope I got his name right. And he came up with it as a way to assess patterns in large populations, not individual human beings, large populations. The sample size he used was a group of white men. So clearly you can see there are three problems with it already, right? One, it wasn't designed for health. Two, what works at large numbers doesn't necessarily hold true when you bring it to the individual level. And three, he basically excluded all kinds of human bodies from his statistical sample, which means that the sample can't really be used for those other human bodies. But insurance companies really like BMI because it fits really well into actuarial science. And so they adopted it. And because healthcare is so heavily funded by insurance, it sort of snuck its way into healthcare as well, and it soon became a stand-in for an indication of how healthy a person is or is not, even though BMI is just a number and has nothing to actually do with how healthy you are or not at any given point of time. So in 1998, they decided to lower the upper limit of the overweight category of BMI from 27.5 to 25. And like that, magically, a humongous number of people were suddenly unhealthy overnight. And you know, the really weird thing about all of this is, in actual fact, when you look at studies that explore the causal relationship between BMI and mortality outcomes or lifestyle diseases, people in the overweight category have the longest lives and the most healthiest lives.
Let's look at the science behind health. I refer to Lindo Bacon's Health at Every Size and what Jason Fung says in the Obesity Code. The body is an incredible machine at ensuring perfect balance and functioning. We don't need to tell our lungs or our heart at what level, what chemicals need to be for them to function optimally, right? The same happens with weight. The body decides a particular weight that it thinks it is best for us, Similarly, the body maintains fat at a level that it thinks is best for us to function at. And that weight is called the set point weight. Now, the body may decide its set point weight is a size 4 or a size 24. And it will ferociously protect this decision. Now, there are many factors why the body decides its set point weight. Genetics, of course, is one. In fact, 70% of our propensity to gain more weight is thanks to our parents. So next time your parents come and tell you about your weight, please let them know that it's their fault. Every time we artificially tamper with this set point weight by going on various weight loss regimes, what the body basically does is it tries to get us back to that weight and adds more kilos just to protect itself the next time. So which is why when we go on these diets or weight loss regimes, we do find that yes, we do lose weight over a period of time, then we reach a plateau and then we gain the weight back, and most times we gain even more weight than we were at initially. The mechanism that does this is that when our weight falls below the set point, the hypothalamus gets activated. The hypothalamus is that part of your brain which controls your emotions, controls your body temperature, and regulates your hormones. So what happens is that when the weight falls below the set point, the hypothalamus basically increases your craving, makes you want to eat more, and it increases your lethargy, which makes you want to exercise less. And the signals just keep getting stronger and stronger until you have to give in, and either you binge eat or you just can't get up in the morning.
And this is why 95% of people who lose weight put it all back on over the next 5 years, often with some extra. Even though there is no demonstrated causal relationship between body weight and lifestyle diseases, we continue to think that there is. In fact, what we do have definite proof of is that weight cycling, as in your weight shoots up and down, up and down, up and down, bouncy, bounce, bounce, does affect your body's health and your mortality. So, it just might be that fat people are not unhealthy because they're fat. It might actually be because they've been trying to lose weight by giving themselves eating disorders. Diets are eating disorders. And that is actually why they have all these terrible mortality outcomes. It is entirely possible to be fat and healthy. Yes, metabolic syndrome is a scary prospect. But having extra fat on your body does not guarantee that you will get metabolic syndrome. There are specific biological markers, biochemical markers that you can check for to see whether or not you are at risk of a disease like that. You can't tell just by looking at somebody from the outside. That's just not how it works.
The other thing we really need to understand is the calorie in, calorie out myth. There's a whole complex system that happens between calorie in and calorie out. Let's take a simple example. If you use coal or gas or wood to burn a fire, you assume that if you put less material, the fire will burn for a shorter period of time, right? The body does the exact opposite. So if you reduce the material that you are putting into the body actually reduces the fire or metabolic rate so that that material lasts longer. So when you do that, you're actually putting in less coal and killing the power. And so what happens is that material you've put in also gets stored. Second, we need to understand the role of hormones in our body, primarily insulin. Insulin is the hormone that tells our cells to convert glucose into fat for energy. So if our cells do not need that glucose, what insulin does is converts it into fat and stores it for another day. So the first thing that happens is as long as there's insulin in our body, things are being converted into fat. The second thing that happens is the more insulin there is in our body, the less the cells listen to insulin. So the cells become desensitized and stop listening to insulin signals about taking in that glucose and using it for energy. So what happens? It's the same as that burning coal example. Even when you put in less calories, these get stored as fat. It's only when the insulin levels drop that our stored fat starts being used. The only food that we eat that does not activate insulin is fat itself. So between the science of the set weight point, how our bodies work, and modern day advice on how we need to lose or maintain weight, the exact opposite of what we want is happening. What is the outcome? Our bodies are being trained to store more and more fat.
But the worst thing is that the effect that all of this has on fat people. Consider the fact that when you go to a doctor, you probably will be shamed for your weight. And that whatever the cause of your symptoms, the doctor is going to tell you it's actually at the end of the day your weight. Now, setting aside the impossibility of magically losing all your weight in a week so that you can get better, what on earth does weight have to do with a UTI? There are so many cases of fat people, especially women, who end up with horrific diseases, cancer, like tumors that are like the size of a baby, right? Why? Just because the medical community has ignored them, dismissed their symptoms all this time and just constantly attributed them to being fat. And because you're always told that your fatness makes you unhealthy, you don't push back and say, no, this doesn't make sense. Even though these women have been complaining of terrible pain, discomfort, exhaustion, whatever it is, for months and months and months, the medical community will turn around and say, oh, you know what, it's just because you're fat, you should lose weight and you'll get your energy back. And that means they're basically just refusing to diagnose them. But what's even worse is that so many fat people don't even give themselves the chance to have healthy lives because they are so deeply convinced that they cannot possibly be healthy in the bodies that they have. And so they don't work on their strength and they don't work on their mobility. And as they get older, obviously these things begin to fade just like they do for thin people. And they're like, look, I'm trapped, I can't move, I can't do this, I can't do that. And look, the prophecy came true. My fat meant I was going to be unhealthy.
Understanding the science has been pivotal for me in my journey to a healthier body. Now, when I fall back into old habits, all I need to do is to remind myself that I have a set weight point, that I must not mess with, and that I need to give my body time for it to process, for her to process the insulin and get a break from it. I am a strong believer that each one of us has agency on our own bodies and what we do with it. But at the same time, it is our responsibility to educate ourselves on what health actually means. If we want to be healthier, we need to understand what health is about. We need to disassociate that with the looks, and then we need to inculcate the habits that are actually healthy.
And that's it for this video. Yay, we did another one. As always, guys, please like, share, comment, subscribe. And if you don't want to comment on the video here, please feel free to reach out to us. We are at fatsopodcast, FATSOPODCAST, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail. We also have a website, which is, no prizes for guessing, www.fatsopodcast.com. And finally, if you want to be in touch with us and know what we're up to, and we keep coming up with new stuff to do, mind you, and we have some really cool stuff coming up over the next few months. So if you want to be in touch, sign up for our newsletter, fatsopodcast.substack.com. All links are in the description. That's it for now. Bye.